One of that's certainly been a debate within the media as to what extent is the content that we have created, the content that you and your users have created, is being used to train these models that in essence have not paid for any of that IP, that are using that IP to become nimbler, faster, stronger, more competitive. How are you thinking about that? Because that must be, there's all of that free content that you've made available is content that is now being used by some of these models.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it is correct that a model could be crawling our free database as well as we could, and but I think for us, our focus is what do we know that's special on top of it, and we have a lot of expertise around how to build trust, for instance, between two people in the presentation. It goes back to even things like ethos and different, models on how our brain works, how to use space really well so that people can remember content in relation to each other. So I think for us, our main focus is essentially leveraging our expertise on top of even our public data in a way that we're faster, better than anyone else.
You've mentioned a few things in this conversation that I'm not familiar with, and I'm intrigued, like gesture control, using space. Can you give me what do you mean by that? Are you actually helping people to give the presentations that they design? How do you incorporate gesture
Yeah,
control into what you do?
as an example, so something that's evolved recently because of the pandemic is that people are presenting on screen a lot more versus in person. And so we added a functionality to Prezi called Prezi Video that allows you to bring your content on screen alongside of you. And so you can actually work like a weather person. You can have your content on the screen beside you. You can gesture to it, and we can even take actions based on your hand gestures, maybe to move content around and things like that. It just makes it way more interactive and way more engaging for your audience. And it worked great for our customers during the heavy online usage to avoid things like Zoom fatigue, so to speak.
Right. So that's interesting. Do you have any advice that you've gleaned yourself that what would be a couple of tips that you're using that might not be intuitive to us from your Prezi experience?
Yeah, I would always remind everybody when you starting a presentation that has some stakes to it. You're trying to convince somebody of something. Always make sure you get the person to want to listen to you, want to hear your story about it. So you want to personalize the conversation as best you can. Sometimes people say start with a story. Sometimes people say start with a question. But always remember that even as the technology gets more sophisticated, or you're going over a screen where it feels more transactional, make sure you spend time establishing yourself and why your interests are aligned with the other person's. And you can use on-screen content to help and things like that, whether it's just to further personalize through the imagery that you choose. But ultimately, remember you're having a conversation, and the presentation is there to help.
Right. So it's secondary. I mean, what do you think is being overhyped right now about AI? Because there are every certain times brands come along, they suck the air out of the room. Sometimes they actually, suck the business out of the room too. But as you've seen all the coverage out there, and especially with regard to your own business, what are we getting wrong? Are we too paranoid? Not paranoid enough? Not opportunistic enough?
I think so in closest to our industry, I think what's getting hyped is that you're basically going to just be handed content that works in a business setting. Like, I don't think that's going to work. Because again, a lot of what we talked about already is decisions and are made a lot of times also based on the trust of the team and the people and things like that. And so content is in a supportive role there. So I do think that the worry that like creating good content is somehow going to become worth zero. I don't believe that. I think that the level of content that we create today, that'll become table stakes. But the humans have limitless creativity, in my opinion, right? And so I think if you do assisted, kind of AI capability, which is what Prezi's focused on, I do believe that we're still going to stay creative and we're still going to keep creating things. It's just going to be better. So I worry a lot less about somehow the ability to to build things, to create things, is somehow going to get devalued.
So, what does give you pause? I mean, let's talk about even on the regulatory front. We've seen a lot of moves to try and get our arms around the technology, potentially even controlled. Is there, if I were to send you to Washington, would there be anything that you would want to see to help or hurt or shape, not hurt? Nobody wants to hurt. We're not here to hurt. Shape what's happening.
I think for me, the way I think about this is that as an industry, if we do sort of eliminate something, we should think about replacing it, right? And so by all means, I think AI will change the way we work, just like mobile devices change the way we work, right? Just like the cloud has changed the way we work. And so I think we as an industry should be responsible. And if we eliminate certain parts of the, say, jobs in our company or in an industry, I think we should be focused on replacing it. I don't pretend to have the answers, but even things like, if you pollute, you plant a tree, right? And so I think we should approach this as a common platform also, not just something that's private to one individual business, and make sure we're advancing all the parts of the ecosystem, including the ones that are hurt at least temporarily.
Well, can we drill down on that a little bit? I mean, I'm not quite sure what the fix is. What are you doing yourself? I mean, you must. How is this latest iteration of AI impacting your own company and workforce?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we're definitely leveraging it not just to provide our customers with functionality to build a presentation, but to make our business better.
Right.
But now, if we think about Prezi, we're hundreds of employees, so we're not that big. But like, if we automate some part of marketing, copywriting, the good news for us is, it's hard to hire good, talented marketers, let alone engineers, and so the opportunity for us is essentially to say, yes, that got easier. So let's have you work on something higher order, right? And so, in the case of marketing copywriting example, just have them focus more on who the right users are, who would benefit the most of what we're doing, where do we invest next quarter in some of our marketing. So, so for us, when we have applied the technology to how we produce Prezi, or how we operate the company, I mean, largely it's just given us an opportunity to go higher order with the user, with the employees. So now we're in a place where having talent and hiring it and keeping it is a lot of work. So we're, our focus is retaining and growing our talent, not.
Is that your biggest pain point as a leader? You think the talent, finding and retaining talent?
Yes, yeah. In general, I'd say absolutely. We have top talented people at Prezi that have lots of opportunities and to do things, and so for us, it's all about having the right talent and having it all aligned and retaining it. Even today, the marketplace is still pretty strong for talented people.